The gold standard for decades has been voting systems that are Byzantine fault tolerant in the very strongest sense, the asynchronous kind. The problem is, for a community to come to consensus on just a single yes-no question, you might have to have everybody send out a vote. I vote yes, you vote no. But you could lie and send a different vote to two different people. So maybe you have to send out receipts on your votes. So if there's 1,000 of us, then 1,000 of us are sending out a vote to 1,000 people. That's 1,000,000 votes. But then each of us has to send a receipt on each of the votes we've received. That's 1,000,000,000 votes going over the internet. But then that's just for one round of voting. Then what you do is you collect the votes and you say take the majority, and then you send out a new vote that reflects that. And then you have to go through multiple rounds. Billions and billions of messages going over the internet. And then eventually you come to a conclusion, we all reach consensus on a single yes-no question. But what if I have 1,000,000 transactions that I need to put into order? Then we have to somehow do that. And so we have to have a whole bunch of these yes-no questions. And the whole thing collapses. To my knowledge, no one has actually ever implemented a pure voting system that is in daily use in the real world. It was just not practical. People have modifications, but then they're not really a pure voting system, and maybe you don't quite get the purely asynchronous Byzantine. You have to settle for partially asynchronous. So what is the key to make this possible, to have the high security but also the high speed, was to have an actual voting system with no votes. Then you get all the mass security proofs, but you don't have any voting, so it's super fast. But wait, how can you do that? So the aha moment was when we realized what you can do is every time you're sending somebody a message, you add just the tiniest bit of extra information. And if you do it the right way, we could end up building a complete record of how everyone has talked to everyone. And it almost costs us nothing, almost no bandwidth at all. This is what the hash graph is. It's a graph held together with hashes, and all it is the messages we're sending back and forth, the events, that contain the transactions and the timestamps and things, with a tiny bit of a little extra information, just 2 little hashes in each, and you get this view that tells you, you will know every person who has talked to every person and when they talk to them, in what order, for everyone in the community, even people you haven't personally talked to. And with that much information, you can run one of those old voting algorithms in your head with no votes actually being done. Because you see, you know what I know, and you know when I knew it. And you know what I know about what Alice knows. And you know what I know about what Alice knows about what Bob knows. And given all of that information, you know how I would vote if we were to run the algorithm. So I don't have to vote. You can just use it. And that's it. So that's virtual voting. We're going to run an algorithm where I'm supposed to send you 1,000,000,000 votes, but there's no votes. That's how we do it. So with virtual voting, we can have the speed of no voting at all, but we can have the absolute strong mass security that comes from the actual voting. And so that's the whole algorithm. Basically now, essentially all we're doing is sending around the transactions we need everybody to know about. And when you get one, you collect it. And when you get a few more, you just suddenly magically know what order this one was in. And you know what its timestamp was, and everybody in the community got to contribute to that timestamp. And you get all of that with absolutely no communication about consensus or about voting or about any of those things. You just know, because that little bit of extra information gave you such a rich view of the history. The hash graph allows you to do virtual voting. That is what virtual voting is, and that's what the hash graph is.